Do you believe that what he saw and experienced is real?
I genuinely believe something happened, genuinely. And with all of the different mysteries and things that are surrounding this location, there's no doubt in my mind that something happened.
The year was 2010 in the campgrounds of Mount Shasta, California. Catherine Wimberly, then in her 50s, was on a camping trip with a friend in French Gulch at the Clear Creek campground. It was an area of forest she described as eerie for its utter lack of wildlife. The only animals the campers saw were 2 crows perched in the trees, watching them ominously. Other than that, they didn't even see a bee, Catherine, aka Kathy, reported. They did, however, see several bright red eyes peering at them from behind the trees of the woods right before they went to bed. They believed the eyes belonged to a herd of deer trying to find the river, so they didn't think much of it and retired for the night. The next morning, Kathy found herself out of her tent, lying face down in the dirt. What's more, she had a strange puncture wound on the back of her neck that she took to be a spider bite. Her friend, who'd been sleeping in his camper some distance away, also woke up with a puncture wound, though he hadn't found himself inexplicably out in the open. The campers became violently ill, too ill even to pack up and go home, Kathy reported. She also said she felt sucked of creativity and emotions, experiencing some sort of deep emptiness and lifelessness that she couldn't shake but that eventually passed. She didn't have any answers as to what happened to her and her friend. She considered that perhaps she'd had a stroke or was exposed to mercury while panning for gold, but there was no evidence for either explanation, and for a while, Kathy simply moved on from the incident. 1 year later, in September of 2011, Kathy's 3-year-old grandson, Indiana Pitts, went missing from Fowler's campground on the outskirts of Mount Shasta. Indiana was camping with his family in an area called Camp 4, separate from the main campground. Indiana had been playing with his sister and other children near the McCloud River when the children spotted a rattlesnake, prompting them to run away while the small Indiana was left behind. Soon, Indiana became lost. After searching for Indiana frantically and having no luck, the family called the police, who were assisted by a volunteer search party of around 100 people, who were available because it was the Labor Day weekend. Eventually, a set of child's footprints was discovered along the shoreline of a creek. The police followed them, noting that the prints showed the child's shoes were on the wrong feet. A sheriff's canine team was deployed to track the scent trail of whoever left the footprints. At 11:54 p.m., just before the day was out, Deputy Sam Kubowitz and his canine partner Tom, a Dutch shepherd, found Indiana hiding under a bush. He initially thought the dog was a wild animal about to kill him, but upon realizing someone had arrived to rescue him, he cried out where he was. The boy had been missing for 5 hours, but now he was safe. The search and rescue mission was a success. This, however, isn't the end of our story. In fact, it's just the beginning. About 3 weeks after the incident, Indiana was staying with Kathy when he randomly announced that he didn't like, quote, the other Grandma Cappy, Cappy being his name for Kathy. Kathy asked Indiana what he meant by this, and he explained that after he became lost, a woman who looked identical to Kathy took him by the hand and led him to a cave, which he later described as a dungeon, that was filled with spiders as well as guns and purses. He said there were people standing against the cave's walls, frozen and metallic with distressed looks on their faces. Indiana acted this out for Kathy, who described him as looking like Han Solo stuck in carbonite in the film Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. Indiana called these frozen people robots. Indiana also described the other Grandma Cappy's skin as shimmering in the sunlight when she climbed a ladder that led to an opening in the cave's ceiling. This made him believe she was a robot too, though Kathy thought this sounded more like a description of a hologram. When Kathy asked what the other Grandma Cappy did to him, he said she made him lie down and pressed on his stomach. Then she requested he give a stool sample to be collected on a sticky piece of paper, but he couldn't provide one. Finally, she took him back to the river and instructed him to hide under a bush until someone found him. Now, Kathy was quite troubled by this story, especially the part about the imposter grandmother trying to collect a stool sample, which struck her as very odd and not something her grandson could have picked up from a movie or a TV show. She phoned her son Daniel, Indiana's father, and he told her that he'd already told them the same story. Daniel dismissed Indiana's claims as the product of a child's lively imagination, but Kathy, who'd had an unexplained experience around the same place her grandson went missing, believed there was more to his story. About a year after the incident with Indiana, she took his story and her own to a forum on the website Above Top Secret, a place to discuss conspiracy theories and the like. She also reported the story to David Paulides, famous for documenting cases of people who go missing in national parks via his Missing 411 project. More and more people began to learn about the story, and eventually Kathy and Indiana, along with other family members, appeared in a short-lived series called Into the Unknown, which aired on the Travel Channel in 2020. Previously, Indiana's name hadn't been public, and he was simply known as John Doe. The fact that the family are freely putting their faces and real names out there would seem to suggest the story is not a hoax, and that they are truly convinced something happened to Indiana. As for the truth of what the boy encountered in those California woods over a decade ago, we may never truly know. Thanks for watching, guys. This story is certainly an odd and creepy one, but I think we can all agree that the important thing is that Indiana is safe and sound. That said, I'm not sure what to make of this story. Perhaps Indiana had run afoul of an otherworldly kidnapper who tried to kidnap his grandmother and her friend a year prior. That might explain the guns and purses, perhaps a toddler's description of backpacks, in the spidery cave. Maybe they belong to the frozen people standing against the cave's walls, whom the robot grandma had captured. Assuming that's the case, stay safe out there, and steer clear of robots if you ever go camping, guys. And remember, don't get scared out of sorts.